All right, good morning. This is Nathan Alberg with Illinois Farm Link, a program of the Land Connection. And from time to time, we interview experts and service providers and other knowledgeable people about topics that relate to farmland access for farmers. And today we're fortunate to have Richard Ritter of Flanagan State Bank with us. And first, I'm going to ask Richard to introduce Flanagan State Bank. Tell us more about Flanagan State Bank and why it kind of had an interest in organic farming.
Flanagan State Bank is a family-owned bank since 1913. And basically, our bread and butter is the farmers in our communities from small town America, family farms. And so this was kind of a natural. My exposure started in about 1994, watching Jack Ayersman at Painham. Many of you might know Jack Ayersman. And that kind of whet my appetite a little bit. And one meeting we had when I was at a previous bank, he brought in a guy named Fred Kirschman from South Dakota, I believe. And Fred Kirschman was describing the crossroads in agriculture that we were at. He said, do you want to make a lot or make a little on a lot or a lot on a little? And I thought, okay, what he was basically talking about is the more we produce, the less the price is going to be on conventional. And this was back in 94. And what he was saying is if we go to value added or organic products, we're going to have specific markets and make more money. And so that kind of got me thinking. And then I started working with some clients. I've been up here 30 years at Flanagan Bank. It's been a great bank. We started an organic newsletter. We put out some books. And actually what happened in 2015, I was asked by Land Connection to speak at an event. And when I started preparing, I did a lot of research and I sent out surveys. And what I found was, number one, one of the biggest problems organic producers had was finding lenders that understood and wanted to work with them. And most of the people were using credit cards or family members to finance them. The land they were farming was family owned because they couldn't get anything from other farm managers. So there was a lot of issues holding them back. Crop insurance, as I studied that, it's so much better than conventional. And it's kind of basically, as I looked at it, we would have less risk going into organics. It's a growing market and it's a market where there's not a lot of competition and we can shine. We talk about you want to be the purple cow in the room that's different than anybody else. That gave us the opportunity to serve people and promote family farms. And to me, faith, family, and farms all go together. And that was just a natural for us.
So how many branches does Flanagan State Bank and where are they?
We have 5 or 6 branches. We're in Leroy, Gridley, El Paso, Flanagan, and Benson.
Got it. And you had told me that your organic business is about 10% of your farm lending. Is that correct?
It was 10% a couple years ago and it's growing.
Oh, wow.
Things that are happening, we're having more and more people come to us looking for, to work with us because of our experience in organics, but we're also having conversion from conventional farmers that are looking for other ways to make more money with the ground that they've got with higher rents. And we're seeing a lot of people that are saying, okay, I'm going to try 40 or I'm going to try 80 acres and get my feet wet, which is the right way to do it. And so that's worked very well.
And can you lend outside of where your branch offices are?
We have gone into Wisconsin. We've gone into Indiana. We've talked to some people in Iowa and Missouri. That's a pretty major step for a family, community-owned family bank.
Absolutely.
But, basically, from the chairman of the board to the president of the bank, they are committed on organics. They see both a need for health-wise as well as an opportunity for farmers to just provide another shingle. It's not for everybody, but if it matches your operation and what you can do, there's a great opportunity to keep family members on the farm.
So Richard, tell me just real briefly, I'm always interested in the why behind what people do. And so what makes you so passionate about helping farmers?
Okay, what I see happening, okay, I'm 70 years old and you say, why are you working? Well, that's a good question. But why I'm working, the new challenge is, even with organic farmers, is to take them all the way to the food level to the consumer. I see potential for a lot more money to be earned If you go up, there's
Mm,
about 3 channels that you can go marketing your crops.
yep.
A conventional farmer has one choice, take it to the elevator, and maybe there's just a little variation. But basically, you can sell it for feed grain, food grain, or you can directly sell it to the consumer. And I've seen cases where there might be $76 a bushel difference in wheat, just because of
Wow.
what you're doing. So the quality, quantity, and all those factors come into play. You have
Got
really
it.
a major impact on what you're going to get for your crops.
So were you a farmer yourself? Did you grow up on a farm?
I grew up on a farm. One thing that's very unique about our bank, we don't have anybody with an ag degree. Everybody's got a business degree. But we all grew up on the farm. And where this comes into play, one of the biggest issues we see in today's farmers is financial management skills. Everybody's got
Um,
production, but to be able to know their break even, have a risk management plan, be able to market and communicate their operations, that's where the weaknesses are. That's where we excel.
got it. So Richard, the reason we're here today is we were talking at the Organic Grain Conference just a few days ago about the calls that we're getting from small conventional row croppers who are
Right.
having trouble making ends meet. They're especially having trouble getting more land. And what they often tell us is the big guys can pay more for leases, the big guys can pay more for buying land. And so they feel a little stuck, a little trapped. And some of them are doing everything you can imagine to do to sort of make a connection with a landowner or whatever else. But let's start about that. One of the challenges we're having with that situation is that we know that they're just competing on price.
Right.
And that's a bad place to be when you're competing against bigger people. So tell me more about if the profitability per acre of organic versus conventional.
Okay, right now, what you're looking at, if once you're get into a certification situation, and then I'm looking at a 4-crop rotation of corn, soybeans, basically oats and hay. So you got a diversified crop rotation compared to corn and beans. And in the numbers that I've ran, it's between $125 and $175 an acre difference, taking an average of those 4 years to the benefit of organics.
So you're saying, so what would the actual numbers be? Is it
Okay, let's
like,
just say $150 more than you would make with conventional corn or beans per year
wow,
for 4 years.
yeah,
Okay, that's part of it. The other part is when you break the cycles of corn and soybeans, now all of a sudden you change the weeds and you change the bug patterns. So you don't have the resistance building up. That's a
got
big
it,
deal. Plus you've got healthier soils, more organic matter. So it's more than just money.
got it. And I think you're essentially saying that an organic grain farmer could make more money with less acres than a
Correct.
conventional farmers would make.
And why would landlords want to do this? Is one of the things they look at when they basically put out an appraisal on a farm is market value. The other one is income potential. So if you're looking at that and saying, hey, you're almost going to add another $200 per acre, what's that going to do? That's going to add to the land value. This is my opinion, but I would think your land should be worth $600 or $1,000 more than a conventional farm once it's certified because of the
Really?
income potential.
Wow. Wow. So tell me, I know you mentioned at the conference that you have done a few years ago, you did a survey of landowners in terms of what they were looking for. Can you share with me
Yes.
what the findings
What
were?
we actually did in 2023, late 23, we sent out about 60 different letters to people that would not have children or family members to farm that would be retiring, be looking
Yep.
for a tenant. And we gave them a blank piece of paper and said, what are the traits you're going to look for in a tenant? Okay, the top 6 responses were number 1 at 64% frequency, honesty. Number 2, communication with landowner, 54%. Number 3 at 54% was understanding farmers. Number
Yep.
4 at 54% also dependable, trustworthy, hardworking, humble, and flexible. Number 5 is a steward of the soil, regenerative farming practices, crop diversifications, those type things. Number 6, want a relationship with a tenant. One of my favorite responses, we had no names on any of these. One person said, and I thought this is classic that we can all learn from. He said, I want a tenant that will go to Casey's every Tuesday morning, buy a donut, sit down, have a donut and coffee, talk about the operation. So you're talking about honesty, transparency, and communication. That kind of sums it up. Okay, notice the things that are left out. There's nothing about the size of your equipment. There's nothing about cash rents. These are people that care about the soil and want a relationship. Is this every landlord and every farm manager? No, but there's a lot of farmers that want to make sure and turn it over to young people getting started that will take care of the soil. And one thing that people don't realize, there's a lot of older farmers that will be retiring. And I don't think they're opposed to organics. They just don't want to change when they're 60 to 70 years of age, but they would be more than willing to consider it with a tenant. The biggest opportunity for young farmers is older farmers need help and labor. And if they're willing to go help these older farmers on their ground now, there's a probably better than 50% chance that they will be able to take over that acreage at some point in time in the future. Okay, the problem that I see, and this is one of the myths in agriculture. As a young farmer getting started, you can't compete with some of the people and what they're doing. Find the market that you can. Find older farmers that still, basically they started farming and they want somebody to take care of the soil that they have a relationship with.
Yeah.
There's opportunities, especially if you go to them and say, I want you to farm as long as you want to farm. But on the other hand, when you get ready, can I consider taking over your operation or can we work together? Let's have a partnership. I need equipment. You need labor. Let's work together.
Yeah.
So that's more than you wanted. So.
No, that's fine. So say more. I think there are some conventional row croppers who just are a little bit intimidated by the process and the certification process. Can you give some reassurance about the fact that that can be done and it's maybe not quite as bad as people might expect?
Okay, the one thing about certification process, especially this year, we're looking at an average corn and soybean producer losing anywhere from $120 to $200 an acre just because of costs and inverted markets. So what a lot of conventional farmers are doing this year, they're adding white corn, they're adding non-GMO crops to the rotations to add more money. What does that mean? More paperwork, cleaning out combines. So what I'm saying is that is the first step to transition. You're going to have to do some of those same things.
So what advice would you have for a small scale conventional row cropper who's thinking about going organic? Like what should they be thinking? Who should they go for help? What's the whole package?
Okay, number one, it's important this is the lender in me talking. Number one, go work with somebody else for a while that is a good, successful producer, or hire a mentor to get you started, to guide you and advise you. That is probably one of the biggest things. The second thing that you need to do, once you get some acres to farm, don't farm so much that you don't do a good job. What I've actually seen, take smaller acreage, acres that during transition you can afford to take a loss on. And second off, that you can keep the weeds down and do a really good job. You will be surprised. Everybody in the neighborhood is watching what you're doing. And I've seen this, I don't know how many times, that if you do a good job, they will contact you, honest to goodness. And they also know every bad farmer in the county. But the organic farmers that are good, nobody knows them because they can't tell them from conventional. And we've seen some unbelievably good yields for organics. I mean, I've seen producers hitting over 200 bushel. I've seen some test plots at 230, 240. I've seen beans over 60 bushel. I've seen a lot of 50 plus beans. I've seen wheat in 60 bushels. So what I'm saying is there is potential to raise more crops, but you need a good teacher and a good weather pattern and good practices.
What about the question of marketing? Because you were saying the conventional farmer just goes to the elevator. How does the organic row cropper find markets for his or her crops?
That's where a mentor comes into play.
Okay.
Because one of the things that a mentor can do, number one, they've got exposure to markets, and it's sometimes getting the highest price does not do the best. You may have situations where they're not as financially sound, or they put a lot of guidelines and regulations on them, and maybe they reject loads or discount you. So if you got somebody with some experience that's been doing it for a while, they can kind of guide you. They'll make more than what you pay, and those type of things between minimizing losses and improving profits.
What about building additional infrastructure as far as bins or that kind of thing?
Okay, there are all kinds of programs for that 28 to $30 million project. In fact, I've got one producer, what he's doing, he's putting up bins, and basically he's going to have a storage facility, a processing facility, grinding facility, distribution center,
Wow.
warehouse. And they're paying most of that.
And so when you say they, you mean the bank, the government? Really?
Yes. There's all kinds of grant opportunities. The one grant that I was telling you about, it starts at 50,000 and goes up to $3 million.
How competitive
What
is
I'm
that
saying
grant?
is there are opportunities. There's a lot of grant programs in the state of Illinois for smaller producers in terms
Okay.
of, say, vegetables and fruits. I've seen situations where they bought refrigerators or put up little buildings for processing centers or, those type of things. So there's a lot of help and assistance. One thing I will say that's very unique about organic farmers, they have a tendency to help all the people getting in the industry. Your neighbor that's in organics is probably not doing the same thing, or they're doing different markets. So it's an opportunity to learn from each other. And there's been a lot of situations where you have a think tank, maybe 15 or 30 farmers, they sit around the table, what works, what doesn't work. And that's what it's all about.
Got it. Do you see farm managers becoming more interested in organic?
Farm managers are becoming more interested for two reasons. Number one, they're getting calls from landowners. If you want my farm, I want you to do some of that. Second off, they're looking that there is more net return than conventional. So there's a double motive in that situation.
So are farm managers paid on a percentage of the net return?
Percentage of gross.
Percentage of gross.
Yes.
So would organic do better with that as the gross?
Okay, the problem with organics with a farm manager, you're gonna have about 3 years you hit a home run and make a lot of money, or maybe 2.5, and the other 2 years are gonna be pretty slim, but you look at the average on the 4 years.
Yeah.
The hardest thing probably when you're going into transition, let me mention this, is to pay a high cash rent, because you're gonna lose money. And what we've tried to do is negotiate with the landowner and say, hey, can we do it on a 50-50 basis? You share with me on this, because I'm taking the risk and it's taking a lot more time. And what I'm doing is actually building your property, your land to be worth more than it is.
Yeah. Have you seen many farmers and landowners using flex leases?
Flex leases are really good. It's just a matter of how you set them up. And to be honest with you, I haven't really seen one that is a fix-all for every situation.
Oh, okay.
Progress.
Got it. Is there any kind of farmer that you think, you know what, it's probably not a good idea for you to do organic, maybe because you're almost ready to retire, or is there any case of somebody, whether it's their equipment, their personality, whatever, that would make them maybe not a good option for organic?
Okay, if you're going to be an organic farmer, number one, you got to work twice as hard. Number two, you have to have strong management skills. 3, you got to have broad shoulders to criticism from other people who don't understand what you're doing. And you have to have an understanding network of people to support you, whether it's a lender, landowner, family member, type things. But what's happening is everybody's doing a better job of educating and informing people right now. In fact, our newsletter, the whole intent of that is not to sell the bank, but to educate and inform and help improve the lives of farmers. I mean, that's our purpose.
How do people get on the mailing list for that newsletter?
All we need is an email, and it's free of charge, and we do not pester anybody. And we've been blessed with people from all over the country writing articles.
Wow.
It's a real blessing.
Can you give a phone number or that someone could call to get on that list?
Let me give you my email.
Okay.
My email is RRITTER, Richard Ritter, at capital F SB, capital F AMILY. My phone number is 309-747-3600.
Awesome. And then I think you mentioned when we were talking earlier that you are getting calls from farm managers and maybe even landlords, like looking for organic tenants. Is that correct?
Okay. Right now, probably I'm trying to think what the ratio would even be on a conventional basis. if a farm comes up, how many conventional farmers? But when it gets organic, they have to search for good farmers in their area.
Oh,
Now there's a shortage of farmers willing to grow and do that. The one thing I would suggest is number one, okay, eliminate the idea that you got to go out and buy ground to rent or to farm ground. There's opportunities to rent ground, to do those kind of things. The one thing that I would not recommend, there are some capital companies that are buying farms, and what they're saying is you rent the ground, or basically you do the work on the farm and manage it. We're going to tell you what to raise and, you know, the whole 9 yards. And once we make our payments on it, you'll get what's left. What ends up happening is you end up with a very slim amount of money that you're going to make. You're farming a lot of land,
mhm.
but you're not making a very good return on that stuff. And as organics continue to grow, and okay, what's exciting is when I see major seed companies getting into organics, when I see major universities getting into organics, and I see the Costco's and the Walmarts getting into organics. What is that
Yep.
saying? Follow the money and the trends. So it's the right place at the right time. And at this time, I would really like to thank all the people that paved the way. There's a lot of pioneers that went through a lot of
Mm,
criticism and those type of things, you know, providing where we're at today.
that's great. And then I think, can you share any like you know specific conventional farmers who are shifting to organic? Like what's that been like for them? What's working for them? What any personal insights about that?
Okay, I've got several young farmers that were trying to expand their operation and grow, and they were caught in the cash rent situation, and they're trying to buy equipment, and money got tight, so they were looking at other avenues to add more income. And so they started doing organics, and again, they started on a smaller basis, you know, like 40, 60, or 80 acres a year, get it mastered, and then go on and keep adding on that basis. One of the guys actually had, I talked to a farm manager, and he ended up with 800 acres, and it was over a period of 4 or 5 years. And now, I mean, if they get any more, he's going to be the first one they call. They've worked out a very fair arrangement, but there are a lot of people that are getting known as farm managers that work with, that seek organic tenants.
Mm.
I've got some others that are basically looking at it as, okay, number one, right now, where we're at in agriculture, you got to be diversified. You got to have as many income sources as possible.
Yep.
Corn right now, if I look at corn and soybeans over the last 20 years based on the records, 50% or 60% of the time, corn has been unprofitable and beans have been unprofitable. So what
Wow.
that means is you're going to have the ups and downs. And what I'm saying, the more income sources, you kind of spread that risk out. And that's what organic farming does, because, okay, you can basically have several crops that you're producing. And you also, a lot of times will have value added that you add to some of that as well. So that reduces your risk, and building organic matter reduces the weather risk. So you can handle weather situations.
Can you say something more about value added? You just referred to that. I think you're a big proponent of value add really increases your profitability.
Right now, okay, the organic prices, we had too high of prices in 23, but what started to happen in 24 and 25, you know, we're coming back to reality. And organic prices have always been, I've got my number here. I was going to give you an idea. Organic prices have always been on corn and beans over 200% of conventional in the last 20 years. That's huge. And the other thing you'd say, well, the yields aren't staying up. The yields are between 70 and 75% of conventional corn and beans. So, you know, those are big deals. Okay, repeat your question because I think I didn't hit it.
That's no. So I think the question was about value add and how
Value add. Okay,
value
so
add
what's
can
going
also
on?
improve your
Right
profitability.
now, as the organic prices have dropped and people are kind of, organic producers are in the squeeze, they're not quite as bad as the conventional, but the most logical thing is take the next step and say, okay, it's handy to have the feed grain level. What do I need to do to go to the food grade level? You know, what additional things do I have to do to pick up, you know, maybe another $1 or $2 on beans and maybe 50 cents or $1 more on corn. I mean,
Yep.
that's logical. And if you really want to try some, take some products and see if you can market at farmers markets or directly to consumers or CSAs. It's just kind of amazing the amount of profit. I think I told you taking a pound of flour all the way to the consumer makes $78 net profit.
Wow.
And, you know, I know that's real. If you look at basically a pound of flour is over $2. Okay, think about that per pound of grain that went into that.
That's crazy.
Popcorn, you know, is probably, I was trying to think, you're probably over $2 a pound on popcorn.
Wow. So I have two last questions. One is, you talked a lot about the importance of being a good manager and financial, being really on top of your finances. And how would you recommend that someone grow their financial management skills?
Okay, in the state of Illinois, we're very blessed with farm business, farm management. If you want to go a little deeper with some of the record systems, a lot of my data comes out of FinBen, which is the University of Minnesota. And the reason I use that, it's 12 states, but they enterprise every crop, where FBFM does not. So I can go back and say, what is organic corn? What were all the producers this year? What were their numbers? And I can do that for, you know, a lot of my data goes back to 20 years. And if it says, hey, I want to raise rye, is it profitable? I can go back and at least get a base. When I started in this, one of the issues I ran into is, where do you get cash flow numbers? Where do you get data so that you can take it to the bank or to your farm or your farm owner?
Got it. And then my last question is, what final concluding remarks do you want to mention? Did I leave something out that I didn't address that you really think you should mention? Just, this is your platform, just to share some final thoughts.
Okay, I always use the illustration of the rabbit and the turtle, the little fable. Okay, a lot of farmers, when they get started, want to be like the rabbit. Look at me, I'm picking up acres, I'm growing. Okay, but who wins the race? It's slow, steady, the turtle. You know, if you have good business principles and you have a good mentor and teacher, those things, you usually win the race with those principles. So good farm records, getting a lender that understands. And one of the things we do, it's the most important to us to educate other lenders, you know, to make sure everybody's got a good understanding. And the more we can educate everybody, and if you got landowners that you're working with, bring them to Land Connection meetings and other organic meetings. Let them see and understand what other people do and help, you know, basically sell the products and services.
Excellent. Richard, I'm so grateful for your time, especially grateful that you've been so passionate and tenacious and trying to advance organic agriculture in the state, and that you care so much about farmers. We're going to end it here. Thank you so much for joining us. Yes, go ahead, Richard. Go ahead.
The arrow is pointing up in organics. I think there's going to be some tremendous opportunities, and go into it, but go into it slow and do the right things, and just, you know, find somebody that's successful and work with them.
Well, I'll just build on that and say, one of the ways to make connections in the organic growing community is to come to the Land Connections annual organic grain conference that's held every February. Richard is always there. We have lots of farmers that you can meet and learn from. There's great sessions. Definitely check that out as well. And with that, I'm going to end it. Again, Richard, thank you so much for joining us.
Anybody's welcome to call.
All right. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Good luck.